fire, Scarecrow!
In 1962, an American team on the Keith Seal discovered a pharaonic dynasty south of Egypt, which had all the major markings of the pharaonic dynasty. There they found the palace facades and the palace erects. There they found the falcon god Horus, the son of God. Among the Egyptians, the Christ, the first Christ figure. And there they found the crown of the south, unmistakable shape of the crown of the south and the head of a dozen black pharaohs, even before Aha or Narmer Menes or whoever, Scorpion or whoever was the first in Egypt. And there they found the beginnings of the hieroglyphs. In other words, there was now no question that the Nubian was not merely in the evening, he was in the dawn.
Van Sertima is speaking about the study by Dr. Bruce Williams that claimed that Egyptian pharaonic culture arose from Nubian pharaonic culture based on his findings in Kustal. Van Sertima tries to put a racial spin on Dr. Williams' find, but there's no evidence of skin color or race in the figurines that were found in Kustal.
For those that don't know Sal Assasination, this dude right here is completely ignorant. Okay, first of all, he'll fight you tooth and nail about the Olmec being Indian, but then he'll come right over to Africa and say, well, we don't know exactly what color they were, so, there's no racial spin on where, the Cousteau burner is. It sounds stupid. Okay, first of all, the Cousteau incense burner was found by Keith Seal and his American team, not by Bruce Williams. Bruce Williams brought it back to light after the archaeological community turned a deaf ear to Keith Seal because they could not prove that the incense burner wasn't real. Now, if you actually read the material, then you would know this fact, but you don't, so let's move on.
After Dr. Williams' study, hieroglyphs predating Kustal were found in Abydos, debunking Williams' claims that Egyptian writing started in Nubia. Furthermore, subsequent finds in Egypt have made Williams modify his claim. I read, when I wrote the volume on Cemetery L at Kustal, the earliest royal tombs at Abydos were Nakada 3b. Cemetery L begins in 3a. Since then, Dreyer has found the famous tomb Uj at Abydos and some others that date to 3a also. As far as I'm concerned, they are roughly contemporary. Although many try to date the Kustal tombs later, such things as Egyptian painted pottery pretty decisively point to a 3a date. As for a number, that will vary with whatever C14 version you use. But the point to be stressed is that they correlate. Bruce Williams, Oriental Institute of the University of Chicago. That was a quote he gave to me this year.
This clown will sit here and say that Bruce Williams quoted this to you. Now, first of all, where's the evidence of it? I want to see your email. I want to see your mail. I want to see exactly where you got your information from. Where's your sources? Okay? You're going to sit there and say, well, Bruce Williams quoted this to me like y'all drinking buddies and y'all go out hanging and kicking it and stuff. That's your wingman? Or you just proving yourself to be another liar like your homegirl Missy who got YouTubely ass raped by the black authority? In an interview with Bruce Williams by Michael Brownstein, he states that now the people are starting to see things his way. And 3500 BCE is still the date with Tasseti, which makes it 200 years older than Kemet. I continuously hear you talking about the light-skinned Berbers. Before we get into that, let's talk about Dr. Ivan Van Sertima and the real reason why you're pissed off with him. I guess we can start with Dr. Van Sertima's research on the Olmec. He teamed up with Alexander Van Woutenaar to show that recent Africans was in America before Columbus came. Now you feel like it's your duty to try to discredit them. But Dr. Sertima wrote a number of books, one of which is Blacks in Science, and it was distributed to the employees of NASA. You can find it right there in the NASA library. So now, Sal Assasination, I gotta ask you a question. Where are your books? What's your credibility? I didn't think so.
Dr. Keita has stated that they were contemporaneous and that they both descend from a Saharan source. So the point is mute because even though Nubia is farther south than Egypt, the ultimate source is a Saharan source with some Sudanese input. But the predominant population that goes on to populate Nubia and Egypt is not from the south, but from the west, from the Saharan before it dried up. So claiming that they came from Ethiopia or claiming that they came from Uganda, Kenya, and all these other places, or any other region of the Niger-Congo for that matter, is false.
See, this is what happened when you have a smart retard. First of all, we're not talking about the western migration to Egypt. we're talking about the ancestral migration from around Uganda and Kenya. Hence, the Hennifer papyrus found in the British Museum.
Anthropologists say when these first people, these blacks, left the cradle of humanity, they almost all went northward. The primary branch of this migration moved into what is today Kenya and then north into modern Ethiopia, and finally to the north of the continent into what would become Kemet. This is what modern science says, and the ancient Egyptians agree. In the Hennifer Papyrus, the Egyptians declared that they came from where the Nile River begins, at the foothills of the Mountains of the Moon, where God Hapi dwells. We have two geographical identifiers here, mountains, plural, and the origin of the Nile. We'll do this carefully so the Euro clowns don't get lost. The Nile River is the only river on Earth that flows from south to north instead of north to south. It has two branches, the Blue Nile in the east, which originates in Ethiopia, and the White Nile, which originates in the area around Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. So, no matter which branch you choose, there's no denying that we are deep within Africa, where even the most delusional Euro clown wouldn't dare say white people might have come from. The Blue Nile cannot be what the Hennifer Papyrus was referencing, because its reservoir, Lake Katana, is so tiny, and there are no mountains there anyway. So it can't meet both of our requirements, without which it can't be the right answer. That only leaves the White Nile. Already we can see it's in a very promising and familiar neighborhood, the Great Lakes region of Central Africa, where man arose. It's also the location of the Ruwenzori Mountains. These are the foothills of the Ruwenzori Mountains in the foreground, and in the background you see the Ruwenzori Mountains themselves. The priest Hunefer described them accurately. Keep in mind, this is over 4,000 miles into the African interior. Small wonder the Egyptians were so proud of themselves. They felt they could accurately trace their roots back to the very dawn of humankind. Science has certainly confirmed this.
Here in the desert, thousands of years before, a black African people literally seeded the very seed that would eventually be planted in the Nile Valley by them leaving the desert when it became super arid about 5,000 years ago and moving into the Nile Valley with their cargo of knowledge and kick-starting the pharaonic civilization. So from the rudimentary megalithic ceremonial astronomical sites that we found at Nabta Playa eventually leads to the construction of pyramids and temples. So we found the thread, if you like. And this is what this book is going to be about, to literally present this physical evidence. But what's more is now that we realize that this particular culture that centered around the Nabta Playa region probably was very much diffused in the Sahara, in the southwest of Egypt, because we found evidence of their presence far, far, far in the southwest, about 700 kilometers from Abu Simbel, on the extreme limits of Egypt, where the borders of Sudan and Libya are encountered. In a very, very mysterious region called Jebel Uwainat and Gilf al-Kibir, there is an abundance of rock art which literally shows us in images painted by the very people, by the very black, mysterious stargazers of Nabta, and showing us how they look like. And it's pretty impressive. They seem very sophisticated. They lived in large communities. They obviously had herded large groups of domesticated animals, cattle in particular, and had begun agriculture. The missing link, if you like, to the pharaonic civilization and the explanation of how this pharaonic civilization seemed so far to have sprung literally from nowhere. Well, it didn't. It seems to have inherited thousands of years of knowledge that was imported by these people into the Nile Valley at about 3,500 BC or so. So there you have it.
Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brother.
And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.